So it's the end of January and we're heading out of New Orleans eastward towards Florida. Before leaving New Orleans, we went to the National World War II Museum. It was pretty good, had pretty much everything you need to know about World War II history, but it didn't have enough planes for us. So later on you'll see we go to a Naval Air Museum in Florida.
Snuck into the Mardigras warehouse where they kept all the float figures and had a wee look at them because we weren't going to be here during Mardigras. Dawn, who does this remind you of, Dawn?
I'm telling her.
This reminds me of my niece Willow, or maybe this does.
Head on a trolley bus.
So we were sad to leave New Orleans. It was our favorite city so far. It had a great vibe, good culture. We loved the French Quarter. The food wasn't so good, but everything else was great.
We're south of New Orleans and we're looking for alligators, and the guy says don't stick your hand in the alligators' mouths, so we're going to remember to do that.
And you'll be okay.
And then you'll be okay, yeah.
Unfortunately, we didn't see a single alligator on our walk, but we did find a couple of pairs of shoes that had been left on the boardwalk for some reason.
In the swamplands, we came across these root nodules. They're actually part of the cypress tree root structure to help keep it upright because the tree is completely underwater.
Apparently they come running out of the swamp, running very quickly at you, making a very loud snarling sound. So it's over rather quickly and you don't really feel much pain. East along the Gulf Coast from New Orleans, the first city we come across is Mobile, Alabama. It has a history in slave trading and in the cotton industry, as well as being a center of shipbuilding that really came to its head during the war, the Second World War. Beautiful avenues in Mobile, and we went to see a battleship, the USS Alabama, which is a nicely preserved battleship on the outskirts of Mobile. At the location of the USS Alabama battleship, there were a bunch of World War II and later planes. They weren't in great shape, but they were easy to walk around and have a look at before you walked on the battleship. And there was also a submarine there too.
USS Alabama.
So the USS Alabama Battleship was commissioned in 1942, and the surprising thing was that it was decommissioned in 1947. That's a 5-year lifetime for a battleship. It did a lot during those 5 years and fought against the Japanese Pacific Fleet for most of that time, and was instrumental in winning a number of battles fighting over islands in the Pacific Ocean.
The USS Drum is the oldest American submarine on public display, and the tour was absolutely awesome. You could see the torpedo chutes, all the old systems, and the docent on board was very helpful, and he was on board a naval submarine himself and said that the submarines haven't really changed that much. It was very interesting and highly recommended. This submarine was pretty instrumental in the Pacific theater of World War II and sank 15 ships and did not suffer any losses.
After visiting Mobile, we drove down to the Gulf Coast, to Orange Beach, where we wanted to check out what the beach looked like, and it's an array of disappointing stucco box hotels, but we wanted to see what the beach itself looked like too. As we head to the beach, I'm half expecting the sand to be messy, covered with BP oil disaster slick or something. But how wrong could I be?
Okay, we're almost in Florida, not quite yet. We're still on the tip of Alabama. Heading east, we're on a beach now called Orange Beach, Alabama.
This sand is the best sand I've ever seen anywhere in the world on a beach. It's white, very soft. Absolutely perfect. I guess it's got a lot of coral content in it or something that makes it so perfect.
It's about 60 degrees Fahrenheit, perfect temperature for me, but not warm enough for tourists. There was only a couple of surfers out here on this beach. It was largely deserted. But judging by the number of huge box hotels, this place gets pretty packed in the summer, I would imagine. The Naval Air Museum is actually located on a Navy base with all the security that goes along with it.
So where are we?
Pensacola Naval Air Museum.
And what just happened to us?
We nearly had a strip search and a cavity search, but at the last minute they changed their minds because I think they just didn't like the look of me.
So they finally let us in to look at their airplanes and helicopters, and it was a beautiful display. They were fantastically maintained, and probably the best display of airplanes I've ever seen in one spot. World War I, World War II, mostly Navy planes, so the theme was aircraft carrier aeroplanes, dating back to World War I even. had a Messerschmitt Me-262, the first jet engine airplane, beautifully restored and on display. Had a fantastic Catalina with the cutaway so that you could see all the inner goings-ons in the plane. This was one of the very famous seaplanes used in the Pacific as a spotter and as a rescue plane. And then there was the big blue sign that said, "Please do not touch the nuclear bomb." Had some British technology given to the American Navy in the form of the Harrier jump jet, first vertical takeoff fighter, and in reciprocation the US Navy gave the Brits the invention of the tea bag. We genuinely wondered which of the two was actually the most useful. From Pensacola we then headed east down towards the Florida Panhandle and through Tallahassee and out into the countryside a little bit as we started to bend down to the south. Past a couple of fires in the pine forests on the way down. We were quite surprised to see pine forests everywhere, and again a lot of tourist resort like beaches. As we drove around the Panhandle, it's not a very progressive area, a bunch of churches, low-cost housing, Confederate flags on the side of the road. So we kind of slid through this as quickly as we could. We found another boat to look at in Hernando Beach. This is an old boat, it's 1992, but it is aluminum and made by a manufacturer that we're interested in, OVNI. So we went to check it out. So Proteus was owned by Bob and Trish, who had maintained her and sailed her around the world and maintained her spectacularly. She was in fantastic shape, built like a tank. She was made out of aluminum, and every system was on the boat that would be needed to go cruising. So this was a tough one for us. It was older and perhaps a little smaller than we were hoping to find, but it really was, ready to go. And the electronics were new. The furniture and woodwork was maintained perfectly. All the systems were in place. The sails and rigging was almost new. It had a great retractable keel, hydraulically powered, and retractable rudders so it could enter very shallow waters for going up rivers. Bob was very generous and showed us the whole boat inside out. Engine was great, engine access was good, batteries were new. It was a DC boat, so simple to maintain and straightforward. It was a fantastic boat at a very good price as well. So we were very seriously thinking about this boat, but we wanted to keep going and look around to make sure we're covering all our bases.